This message is for the youth of America, and if nobody's told you, I care. It wasn't until I had children of my own that I understood the story of the prodigal son. We are the ambassadors of Christianity. Some events brought me closer to God and others further away. But trust and believe everything happens for a reason when you're searching for your identity in Christ. It's nice. My boys and I have recently been going up to the skate park near our house. I'm really glad they've taken a liking to skateboarding too, because it's something that I used to do myself when I was a kid. Which is good, because sometimes common ground can seem like a sinking ship. And if your kids are half as intuitive as mine are, they'll tell you what the problem is. Why one day did you say you wanted to, or it'd be better to switch with my generation growing up?
I feel like people have gotten way too involved with technology and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, like skateboarding, that's something that gets away from the screen. You get to socialize with people, meet a new community. It's fun.
Awesome.
I don't know. In some parts I think it should, but in some parts I don't think it should.
Yeah. Do you have a hard time using your imagination to find stuff to do?
My imagination.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel bored a lot? TV or not TV? That is the question. And yes, this is a play on words from the play Hamlet. But the truth is, the TV was like the original screen time, and anyone my age has been told at some point in their lives, if you don't move back from that screen, you're gonna go blind or cross-eyed. You get the gist. And nowadays, we're so heavily reliant on screens for work and school that to be deprived of screen time entirely would be an injustice to the individual. Now, that being said, when I was laying out the template, for this YouTube channel, I wrote down the memories to me that mattered. And as you may have already gotten the gist, TV didn't rank high on the priority list when there was much living to actually be done. We grew up in a home with a TV though, but not like the TV that we have today. Cable packages didn't hit our area until I was already in double digits in age. And even then, because of our physical location and the train tracks running through our backyard, there was no hope of having cable, at least not without paying astronomical prices. We got 5 channels on a clear day or night, when reception gets better at night because of the ionosphere. These channels included channels 8 NBC, 15 WB, 21 CBS, 27 ABC, 33 WITF, and 43 Fox. My mom attributes my intelligence to Sesame Street, which conveniently dismisses that she had received distinguished honors and a master's from Penn State in childhood education. But this story isn't about how great my mom is. No contest. It's about understanding how to live without TV or screens. Tommy, Danny, and Aaron were the only kids I knew that grew up in a household without TV. Coincidentally, they were also the kids who I knew who read for fun. Anyways, summers were amazing once they moved into Grammy's old house, and I could ride my bike over like normal kids with normal imaginations. I don't even think I ever said the word bored when I was a kid. Anyways, summers were amazing once they moved into Grammy's old house and I could ride my bike over. We played like normal kids with our own imaginations. We were superheroes or jungle explorers. We'd build outdoor forts. And the one we liked to do the most of all was to create military exercises and execute them. Once while my parents were away for a weekend and I was allowed to stay at home, we developed a night mission that involved stealthily breaking into a local factory. I was too cowardly, but the 3 boys, along with our mutual friend Eric Kahn, who has a cat eye by the way, suited up and left me with a walkie-talkie in case I needed to cause a distraction for a getaway. This turned out to be unnecessary, as they all simply went in through a window and no doubt had the time of their lives. I can remember hearing them start a bulldozer from one side of the walkie-talkie and hearing them giggle in delight. They must have wanted to have some sort of a spoil to prove that they had completed their mission. And Eric just so happened to notice a Schwann's ice cream truck that had its back door left unlocked. What was on the other side of the door, you might ask? Frozen Tony's pizzas, hundreds of them. Each one of the boys grabbed a stack as high as they could possibly carry and then began to hightail it down the railroad tracks and back to my parents' house. They must have thought they were super slick and that no one would have a clue what they had done. The real problem was that Eric must have become lazy and decided that he didn't want to carry all the pizza boxes all that way, and began to flick them one after the other into the fence row as he made his way back to the house with the remaining pizzas in tow. Of course, it didn't take long to figure out who had robbed the truck. After all, there was a whole trail of rotting Tony's pizza boxes that led from the truck the entire way back to the house, spread, I'd say every 100 feet apart. My mom still gets mad to this day because apparently Eric was stuffing them under couches and he stuck a couple under the kitchen sink. And it was only after it began to stink that Mom would find one here or there. I suppose because of our age, none of us were held accountable by the law, but Eric's dad was a Vietnam War vet, and all of our fathers were disciplinarians. The types of books the boys would read would be about special op units like SOG, Frogmen, Rangers, SEAL teams, etc. Tommy was all about stealth. I can remember a time when he kept a laser pointer pointed at the back of my dad's head while he worked on a car in the garage for hours as he slowly crept up on my dad in a full ghillie suit. It about gave my dad a heart attack when he looked back over his shoulder in the garage and saw a phantom about 10 feet away. That was Tommy. I once asked him what he was going to do after he got home from school one day, and his response to me was that he was going to stay downwind from a particular groundhog hole and see if he could take care of it with a knife. I was absolutely astonished the next morning when he exclaimed that it was child's play and that he had gotten it within the first 3 hours of waiting.
Let's go.
To get a child to wait 3 hours for anything motionless seems near impossible. But then again, I never made it
and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work cause my boss is a jerk and I'm not even that paid. I need a change in my life cause I don't feel alive and there's nothing that makes me happy. Hold my beer for a minute. I'm about to quit my job, cash in for a ticket. I'm going on a trip and I don't plan to visit. I'm gonna stay there till I feel like I'm winning. And this is just the beginning. I need a big change, help me feel like living. I need a big swing, home runs I'm hitting, and I'll never look back. Moving on till I get it all.
Military career after my primary goal became unattainable.
We all want things, but what you gonna do?
He ended up joining the Air Force after the Navy in an intelligence unit, and was awarded the Silver Star for his back. Harry developed a wanderlust similar to mine, and actually moved through Austria for 6 months. After getting a degree at Lancaster Bible College, he decided to pursue a military career, drafting the Rangers hat. And then, eventually, thanks to his ability to speak German and English,
my strife, my right to fight, to die on. And this is my game to play, to claim a brand new name. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I'm a bit nervous that I might screw everything up that I've ever done. But what's the point of living if you ain't having fun? I guess I'll try this, try that, might miss, gotta find what I'm good at. I guess I look here, look there, over where am I scared, where am I at? I gotta make it in this life, whatever makes me happy, know I'm doing things right. Sipping in the summer on a goose and Sprite, or find a night strip club for the end of the night, oh. And we all got dreams, we all want things. But what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be? And do you believe?
Barely starting up with James one day. The movie he had was one that the intrinsic value of thinking on our feet was invaluable to us. That 20 miles a day was an amazing amount of distance to cover, especially since we weren't in hiking shape. St. Brenda took us to the grocery store and we loaded up on two things more than anything else: airheads and beef jerky. It seemed like we were driving forever. The entire time we were driving, it was pouring rain. We took a photo before we set out, and away we went in somewhat soggy but high spirits. Tommy and Andy had on camo pants, and I can remember his knees foaming from the residual soap in his pants mixed with the friction of walking. We were drenched, and Andy was our mat man. He would assure us that we were closing in on this landmark or that. But when it rains on the Appalachian trails, stream crossings come out of nowhere. So we were always further away from said landmark than we thought. And the playful banter at the beginning of our trip within a few short hours turned into a cold, wet silence. Within the first 6 hours, we were basically out of food. We'd walk a few miles, then sit down and gorge to try to feel better, then do it again about an hour later. This began to worry everyone, but I think it bugged Andy the most. I jokingly called Andy number 4 because that was his class rank. Cumberland Valley is a huge school district, and to rank in the top 10 of 700 kids in your class is no small feat. He was calculating, and a year or two ahead of us in school, so we trusted him with the information he brought with. And thank the merciful Lord we did. Not only were we soaked, but so was everything in our packs to sleep with. And by the way, all of our food was also gone. Andy at this point suggested he read something left on a forestry information board a few miles back about a backpackers hostel that was in a local's garage ahead. And he said, "I got a spare $20 bill. If we can find this Trail Angels hostel, maybe she'll at least let us phone our parents." His honesty combined with our beaten spirits made us easily persuaded to this new plan, and we began to walk down the main road towards what the directions that had been left on the corkboard had shown. Lo and behold, we came to the address of the hostel, which, for those who don't know, is a home or garage where low-priced cots, a shower, and sometimes a meal can be attained by weary hikers for a small fee. Maybe $10 or so. We came up to the front door and an elderly woman answered. "It's off season and you guys look short and wet." None of us could deny that, and without a pause, she said, "Let me show you to the garage." And she took us around back, and it had now become dark outside. And she flipped a switch and then promptly flipped over 2 mattresses, both flinging dust up into the air as they landed. Once she left the garage, we felt like kings. I remember jumping up and down at the excitement at that age, 13. Having never been anywhere overnight unattended by my or someone else's parents, we were like men. I'm sure the curious woman saw our youthful enthusiasm as harmless, which, considering she was alone at that place, which any common murderer could have found their way to, thanks to the handwritten instructions and invitation, and even welcome in perhaps her lonely state, and let us know it was our lucky day, and that she had just so happened to be running down to the grocery store in a few minutes if we'd like to go down with her. She made us promise to be quick. She had a show or something she wanted to be home for, and we politely agreed to her request as we hastily gathered up what we could from our own modest pockets. I'm sure it wasn't more than $10, but it was the 90s, and food was a third the price it is now. We couldn't have been more thankful for the run to the store and made democratic choices on food with hungry eyes, every bit as quickly as we had promised the trail angel. We got back to the hostel and laid out all our wet belongings on this and that object around the garage to dry, and Andy and Tommy went over the map, just to reestablish a course for us that we had, or at least we felt would be more realistic than the first day. I think the course of action we decided to eventually take was to cut back on the mileage to between 6 and 10 miles per day, and to shave off 2 days from our entire trip. This is in comparison to the 19 miles that we had originally This is in comparison to the 19 miles we did on the original day. Jeez, tough crowd. The lesson to be gleaned from this story is that sometimes in life, you set plans originally that you don't have the legs to stand up for, or doesn't have the legs to stand up for itself. Sometimes life will throw you curves that you aren't prepared for, and original plans will fall through as well. It's important to be versatile in your plans and continually reassess what is best for you and those who depend on you. Be malleable and move and flow like water, and allow your plans to be the channels that the water flows through. I can remember the last of the trip being of only good memories as we paired off in twos and played 20 questions to pass the time. We made nice campfires and enjoyed the food that we had gotten thanks to our trail angel. Basically, we just enjoyed the freedoms that our age at that time would not have allowed us to have. And I honestly feel that just being able to soak in those moments without the interruption of things like cell phones probably led to me being a thru hiker eventually. Tommy now works for the DCNR. He's actually responsible for all the mammals in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, then we have Danny. He went from doing those night missions back in the day to, well, he's still doing night missions, I guess. But he's taking different spoils. And Danny, in the face of certain death, performed acts of heroism that earned him that medal. Next we have Aaron. Aaron, he's a natural born leader. Always has been. Aaron just keeps scaling up in his leadership. Aaron worked for the UN and also screwed around and got his ranger tabs. But he wasn't the only one. Even Khan turned out to be an elite special force. Savage. The Tritt brothers, I believe, found careers working for the Lord. And me? I dabbled in a lot of everything. But, yeah. I thru-hiked the Appalachian Trail in 2005. And rubbed shoulders with some famous people. That woman there is the only female to have ever yo-yoed the PCT. So, kind of the perk of doing athletics on that level. But, yeah, I was still the black sheep of the family.
I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.
If you were to ask my dad what happened to society, that we are the way we are today, he would tell you that it happened during the tail end of the Second World War. His logic was that in order to keep the Allied forces in munitions, women had to enter the labor force. After the war was over, the systems that had been developed to actually watch over the children so that the women could go into the factories and make the bombs continued on. And as a result, the platonic family was dissolved. But it wasn't just that. It would have been easier to understand if it was only that. But really, we gave our kids over to be raised by screens. You see, their screens provided the carefully crafted narrative through which Satan could make sin so much more tempting and available to mankind. Those screens, after DARPA's inception of the internet in the late 90s, became much more convenient, affordable, and addictive. We live in the era of the indifference of good men, the era of social media. Let me tell you, there's nothing social about it. Even though its design claims to bring people closer together, instead of creating meaningful and lasting relationships where Christ is the glue meant to bind us together, it creates a superficial dynamic, one that harbors the same ugly traits, those of rebellion and pride, that were found in the Garden of Eden. But that should make perfect sense considering the crafter of the narrative. Consider what the Bible has to say about Satan's throne and where it's located. His throne is located in, Geneva. On the place where the bleeding edge of science takes place, CERN. It's here at the crossroads between technology and Satan's deceptive narrative that we find the concept of transhumanism. It's all deeply interconnected. I mean, just think about what media presents to you. Okay, here's an unrealistic standard of beauty to try and attain. Also, let's glorify violence and sex. Let's put a positive spin on drug use and sprinkle a dash of Nietzsche on top. And, you have what you have. Shoot, I forgot to mention the havoc it wreaks on your body from a sedentary lifestyle as you watch reality take place on a small screen in front of your face. And if you live in a fake life, you can get some likes, which will give you a slight dopamine release, the same chemical that's released during cocaine use. And don't get me started on the accessibility of pornography. I may just do an entire episode alone on that. So the question then becomes, what do I do to get out from underneath this? Step 1, pray. Giving things like this over to God is always the first step if you want to have a positive, healthy change. Step number 2, identify the issue. More specifically, what I mean by that is identifying screens as an addiction. You see, addictions, I know how to fight. You have to understand that it's a battle of mind, body, and spirit. When it comes to the mind, so happiness comes in a few different flavors of hormones. One is serotonin, and another is dopamine. Let's just stop there for simplicity's sake. Serotonin can be considered the long-term, long-range, pleasant-feeling hormone. Dopamine is the right now, instant gratification, I need more hormone. Exercise, done 3 to 4 times a week, is as effective as an antidepressant. All right, so now we've given it up to God. We understand the science behind the addiction. Now we need to do some replacing to deal with the physical aspect of, the unhealthy consequences of screens and a sedentary lifestyle. So what I'm trying to say is get up, get out there, and get active. You see, if you don't, you're going to be stuck in a very negative cycle. The cycle looks like this. You aren't exercising, therefore your body becomes unhealthy. You begin to not like the way that you look. As a result, you feel depressed. Because you're depressed, you stay more sedentary and consume more screens that pump you full of the ideology that says, you're not attaining this standard of beauty that I talked about, you're not good enough. I mean, come on, if you really think about it, looking back, time flies, doesn't it? Not only that, now that you've done some living, you know it's really hard to undo some of the bad habits that we develop early on. We avoid suffering mentally or emotionally because we're afraid of being wrong. The avoidance of suffering is like a disease of the mind. You see, we know life's supposed to be about suffering, but I think we just don't understand or know how much it is, and as a result, and because suffering, well, sucks, we try to avoid it at all costs. We avoid it emotionally by shutting ourselves off from others or isolating. We avoid suffering physically and have health epidemics running rampant in our society, or admitting to our faults. You know, speaking of addiction, the Serenity Prayer has a second and less known verse to it. It goes something like this. Father, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And then it goes on to say, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, right? Accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking this life as Jesus did, not as I would have it, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and forever happy with you in the next. Amen. Right there in that verse, and maybe there's a reason it's forgotten, you know, just like an ashtray can be your higher power now. What the prayer says is that Jesus suffered. Jesus taking this hardship as a pathway to peace. Jesus took hardship, this life, the hardship, as a pathway to peace for not only himself, but all of mankind. And why did he do that? So that we might be happy. It doesn't say happy, it says reasonably happy in this life, in the prayer. You aren't supposed to be happy all the time. If you were, you wouldn't understand it. You were happy at all. It would just be this melancholy, monotoned, gray, blasé life. And of course we know that it's not. I'm not saying that it's wise to throw the baby out with the bathwater. After all, it is through social media and screens that I'm able to give this message to you. And that would be fairly hypercritical and unwise, and that's not what we're shooting for here at the Identity in Christ Chronicles. In fact, as the name of the channel implies, that's what we are about exactly. Oh, and just in case you were wondering what all of these stories had in common, it's Jesus. That's right. Some of you may have thought, you know what? You're probably all married parents. And that's not true. Tommy, Danny, and Aaron's parents got divorced when they were little boys. No, what binds us all together is our love of God and our church-going nature. See, we all love Jesus. Jesus also shows us through example how to resist temptation, or more specifically the devil, and he will flee from you. The thing is, if I were to throw out a term like well-rounded, you would want your kids to be like that, right? Well-roundedness signifies versatility, which means you have an adequate tool belt to deal with whatever life may hand you. The thing is, a stone only becomes well-rounded by being pummeled against other stones as the current drags it along over and over and over again for millennia, giving it that rounded shape. If you truly wish for yourself or for your children to be well-rounded, this is the process they must go through in order to be just that. Try leading by example today, putting your phone down and taking the time that you both need with each other.